7 cheap SUVs that nobody really looks at, but that last longer. Hook everyone wants the obvious choice. The Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, the 4Runner. They're fantastic SUVs, but because everyone knows that, they're also some of the most expensive vehicles on the used market. What if you could skip the hype? What if some of the best long-term bargains weren't the SUVs people fight over, but the ones they scroll right past? There are several forgotten SUVs that never became internet favorites. Some came from brands that lost popularity. Others were overshadowed by bigger names, and a few simply suffered from terrible timing. That doesn't necessarily make them bad vehicles. In fact, many owners have quietly put well over 200,000 miles on these SUVs with nothing more than routine maintenance and a little mechanical sympathy. They won't impress your neighbors. They won't dominate YouTube rankings, but they just might surprise your wallet. Here are 7 cheap SUVs that almost nobody really looks at, but that can keep going long after many people expect. Mitsubishi Outlander 2007-2013. Ask most used car shoppers to recommend a reliable SUV, and chances are the Mitsubishi Outlander won't even come up. That's exactly what makes it such an interesting bargain. Mitsubishi's shrinking presence in North America caused resale values to drop, even though the second-generation Outlander earned a reputation for being a dependable daily driver. The 4-cylinder models, in particular, have proven to be simple, inexpensive to maintain, and fully capable of covering high mileage when serviced regularly. It isn't fast, it isn't luxurious, and nobody is buying one to make a statement. But if your priority is getting from point A to point B without spending a fortune, the Outlander quietly delivers. Because demand remains low, you can often buy one for thousands less than a similar RAV4 or CR-V while still getting available all-wheel drive, decent cargo space, and reasonable fuel economy. Sometimes being ignored is exactly what makes a used SUV such a great value. Suzuki Grand Vitara 2006-23. Suzuki left the American car market years ago, and many buyers assume that automatically makes its vehicles risky purchases. In reality, the Grand Vitara deserves far more credit than it gets. Unlike many compact crossovers that switch to car-based platforms, the Grand Vitara kept a more rugged design that gave it genuine off-road capability while remaining perfectly comfortable for everyday driving. Its naturally aspirated V6 isn't the most powerful engine in its class, but owners have long praised its durability when maintenance schedules are followed. The mechanical layout is refreshingly straightforward, which also helps keep repair costs manageable. The biggest reason people ignore it isn't reliability, it's simply the badge. Without the marketing power of Toyota or Honda, the Grand Vitara faded into the background and resale prices followed. For buyers willing to look past brand popularity, that creates an opportunity to own a surprisingly capable SUV for a fraction of what more recognizable competitors cost. 5. Hyundai Tucson 2010-2015. There was a time when mentioning Hyundai and long-term reliability in the same sentence would have raised plenty of eyebrows. That perception has changed dramatically. The second-generation Tucson arrived as Hyundai was making enormous improvements in engineering and build quality. While no vehicle is perfect, well-maintained examples with the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine have built a solid reputation for dependable service and relatively affordable ownership. Because older Hyundais still carry memories of the brand's weaker years, many shoppers continue to overlook them, even though these later models represent a very different company. That hesitation works in your favor. Instead of paying the Toyota tax, buyers can often find a clean Tucson with lower mileage, more modern features, and a noticeably lower asking price. It may never top anyone's dream car list, But for families looking for practical transportation that doesn't punish the budget, it's one of the smartest hidden values in today's used SUV market. And believe it or not, the next SUV may be the biggest surprise on this entire list. If there's one lesson from the first half of this list, it's this: popularity and longevity aren't always the same thing. Some SUVs become bestsellers because of marketing. Others quietly build their reputation one owner at a time. And the next four prove that sometimes the smartest used car purchase is the one everyone else overlooks. Saturn Vue, 2004-2007. Mention Saturn today, and many people barely remember the brand existed. General Motors discontinued it years ago, which immediately scares away a lot of used car buyers. But the early Saturn Vue hides something that enthusiasts have appreciated for years, especially models equipped with Honda's 3.5-liter V6 and 5-speed automatic transmission. That combination transformed the Vue into one of the more dependable compact SUVs of its era. The Honda-built engine developed a reputation for smooth performance and impressive longevity, while maintenance remained relatively straightforward. Since the Saturn badge doesn't carry much value anymore, prices stay surprisingly low compared to many rivals offering similar reliability. Of course, buying one still requires careful inspection. Age matters, and so does maintenance history. But find a clean example, and you could end up with a remarkably durable SUV for compact car money. 3. Kia Sorento, 2011-2015. For a long time, Kia fought an uphill battle against its own reputation. Many buyers still associate the brand with the inexpensive cars it built decades ago, even though the company made huge strides in quality during the 2010s. The second-generation Sorento became one of those vehicles that quietly exceeded expectations. It offered generous interior space, comfortable highway manners, available all-wheel drive, and ownership costs that often undercut the Japanese competition. The V6-powered models, in particular, earned praise from many long-term owners for delivering dependable service when properly maintained. Despite all that, plenty of shoppers continue to overlook older Sorrentos simply because the badge doesn't generate the same excitement as Toyota or Honda. That lack of demand keeps prices surprisingly reasonable, making the Sorento one of the better values for families needing extra space without stretching the budget. Sometimes perception lags years behind reality. Buick Enclave, 2008-2012. Luxury SUVs usually come with luxury prices. The Buick Enclave is one of the few exceptions, because many buyers immediately think of Buick as a brand for older drivers. The Enclave rarely becomes the first choice for younger shoppers. That stereotype has helped keep resale values lower than many comparable three-row SUVs. Inside, however, the story is completely different. The cabin feels spacious, comfortable, and surprisingly upscale for the money. Long road trips are where the Enclave really shines, offering quiet cruising and enough room for large families or plenty of cargo. Its naturally aspirated 3.6-liter V6 does require regular maintenance, but owners who stay on top of oil changes, cooling system service, and timing-related inspections often enjoy years of dependable transportation. No, it isn't perfect, but considering what these SUVs cost today, the value proposition is hard to ignore. 1. Mazda CX-5, 2013-2016. The number one spot goes to a vehicle that deserves far more recognition than it usually receives. The first-generation Mazda CX-5 arrived without the enormous marketing machine behind some of its rivals, yet it quietly became one of the most well-rounded compact SUVs of its generation. Mazda's Skyactiv engineering focused on efficiency without sacrificing durability or driving enjoyment. The result was an SUV that felt lighter, handled better than most competitors, delivered impressive fuel economy, and developed a strong reputation among owners who kept up with routine maintenance. Even today, the CX-5 often sits in the shadow of the RAV4 and CR-V. Despite offering a driving experience many people actually prefer. Because buyers frequently focus on the bigger names first, patient shoppers can sometimes find clean CX-5s at prices that make them one of the best bargains in the used SUV market. And that's really the theme of this entire list. The longest-lasting SUV isn't always the one with the loudest reputation. Sometimes it's the one sitting quietly at the back of the used car lot while everyone rushes toward the obvious choices. If you're willing to ignore the badge and pay attention to condition, maintenance records, and previous ownership instead, you may end up with a vehicle that serves you faithfully for many years without paying the premium that popularity demands. The smartest used SUV isn't necessarily the one everyone wants. Sometimes, it's the one almost nobody bothered to look at.